After the limited beta test for CS2 has come out, a few original beta testers have come out to talk about their experiences. The casters Machine, Hugo, Harry, Sponge, Moses, Observer Rush, Swedish pros Get Right and Forest, NA Sensation Flom, as well as 2 friends of the dev to make 10 players, all took part in this private beta test. All of them had been approached over Twitter DM for playtesting, and in late January the whole gang went to the Valve HQ in Seattle. In the Talking Counter and HLTV Confirmed podcast, they both opened up about their discoveries. The first stage was mostly about first impression and finding obvious bugs before it went into more optimizing how the game actually works. 2 things became clear very quickly. First, the development team is big and very dedicated, working past dinner hours and even on weekends.
After we were done, there were like a lot of sound issues, but before you turn off your brain and stop listening, they stayed at the office after a 10-hour playtest. We all went to dinner. They revamped the entire sound engine within Source 2 and reloaded an entire new Source 2 engine with the redesigned audio for the next day, and it was so much better.
And secondly, the number one priority is keeping the same core mechanics and feel the same as in CSGO.
Like, that's the thing. The core mechanics was the key to keep the same. Like the movement and the way that shooting feels, right? Like not just recoil and spray patterns and everything, but how satisfying Counter-Strike feels as a game. Like those are the core mechanics that made the game, like make Counter-Strike feel like Counter-Strike.
And with good reason, changing how a weapon feels can completely change if or how often people use a gun versus Vendetta outlines here.
No, because it was awful. Straight up to the point where like nobody used Deagle at the start of CSGO. Everybody used P250, right? And that was partly because of the feedback from the Deagle. And this lasted into launch as well, to be fair. Just felt so wonky. Like whenever you would shoot, it's kind of like those TikTok meme videos you see where somebody has like put, I don't know, some hydraulics to their monitor, and whenever they shoot, like the entire table shakes. Yeah.
Bringing CSGO and CS2 as close together as possible for release will make those transitions less rough. One of the biggest obstacles in recreating the feel of CSGO was the sound. The sound of CSGO is very complex, so pinpointing specific difference that made it feel different was hard. Some sounds that had to be fixed to feel more responsive were the sounds for headshots and receiving damage, maybe to ease in the CSGO veterans, but in the original testing, there was still a jump throw bind in the native game settings, a feature we don't have anymore in our beta. Perhaps this was made to make it easier to try out something you just saw even without understanding what a jump throw is or what you need it for.
They did add a jump throw bind for us, but the jump throw bind is not in the game now. So they removed the jump throw bind.
This would suit the other difference between the 2 betas being the nade preview, which the veterans probably didn't need, but it's a nice quality of life upgrade for everyone.
You do have the preview. I kind of forget that.
Yeah,
it was just super sick, by the way. That's such a cool addition.
That didn't exist in the office when I was there. We didn't see this.
Oh, they didn't?
Nah. So they've added a lot of stuff since.
Certainly a nice upgrade to our ears and eyes is the way in which flashes were fixed in that beta, as it was basically impossible to dodge them even if turning away. We appreciate your sacrifice, casters.
So we had a really big issue with flashes when we were testing in the office. They were like source flashes. Like you could throw them, and even if you turned away, like it still felt like you were getting f***ed, right? Yeah. So that, I don't know, like we had a lot of feedback about that, and they're like, yeah, okay, message received, like we get it.
We also narrowly dodged the decoy meta, with beta decoys still being able to blow up doors on nuke like a real nade, but it seems like Valve wasn't ready to release the full power decoy yet.
There was a bug that we found that was to do with the decoy, and like decoys could literally like blow nuke door off its hinges.
Testers were also explicitly asked not to use clear decal commands, which remove blood splatters and bullet holes, as the devs were very convinced that the improvements they made to them would disturb visibility less.
And like visibility, one thing they really didn't want us to do while we were there, because we could use clear decals when we were there. They didn't want us to use that just to see what the visibility was like, because they said they had put a lot of work into that type of stuff.
And even some questions remain unclear, like if we see our beloved developer console in the final version.
There was conversation about there being like no console, which I think is really interesting. There is obviously console here, but I'm curious if that makes it like to actual when the game ships, because I think that would be like pretty crazy to lose access to console.
Or if we'll actually get a better matchmaking system. Valve remains dedicated to making the game as good as possible, Having other websites focus on making a good competitive experience just makes their job easier.
And this is the thing, I don't know if they will stick with this or not, but the sentiment is like, well, our job, like we should focus on making like the actual core mechanics of the game better. Like Face It, ESEA, ES Portal, whatever, like they can make these websites with these systems. They can do this.
And here's some spicy speculation. In the beta, they only played Nuke, Mirage, Dust 2, Ancient, and Overpass.
Yeah, well, we played like Nuke, Ancient, Mirage, and Overpass, as well as Dust 2. Right, those were the maps we were playing.
Okay.
At the time, the devs were probably still busy fixing the Source 1 version of Anubis, so that would be why they didn't play a port yet. But there's two other maps from the active duty pool I'm missing, Inferno and Vertigo. On the Talking Counter podcast, Harry mentioned seeing a version of Vertigo that was just not ready yet, but no talk as to Inferno.
I did run around on Vertigo. Well, yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but it was sat next to Alex there. He did load it, and they did come over and they said, "Yeah, no, let's we'll just stay on the ones let's stay in the guard." Right?
With the recent discoveries of Tuscan being bought by Valve, this opens the door to speculation. Was Inferno just not ready, or is it maybe lower priority as it's getting replaced soon anyway? As a last point, Sponge talks about the one major change, the smokes. In classic Sponge fashion, he calls the new smokes dynamic just a matter of getting used to. It is not completely game breaking, just a new way to interact with the utility. We actually saw similar backlash to nade dropping or even to Molotovs when they first got introduced to CSGO. Mollies actually got nerfed over time to get to a near optimal state in the game now. By giving feedback, it should be possible to get to the same for the nade smoke interaction. And Vendetta puts it perfectly when he says, things that don't change die.
Things that don't change or evolve die. So like you can't necessarily think about it to the point where it's like we never want to see anything adapt or change at all. I think this is like, it's gonna allow for cool new shit to happen. It's gonna create moments that's gonna be highlight worthy. It's just gonna be fun to kind of explore with everyone else as you see them. Like the first time a pro uses that to get a 3K in a 6 situation or what have you. When people are actually now using like the CT walls or like the wall smokes on Yard on Nuke as an offensive thing as tease, right? Because you drop the smoke and now you're doing AGs into it so you can, you know, peek and catch CTs off guard. Like all this is gonna be fun to see.